Good evening. Ooh, you all are fantastic. Welcome to History Pub. My name's Eliza Canty-Jones. I work with the Oregon Historical Society. We're one of 3 organizations that partner together to bring you History Pub, which we've done for almost a decade now. So History Pub happens on the last Monday of every month here in the Kennedy School, here in the theater. How many folks have never been to a History Pub before? This is your first one. Awesome. Welcome. Please stop by the back table and tell us how you heard about it, because we'd love to know. But really, we're so glad that you found us and that you can be here for tonight's performance and tonight's talk. One of the other organizations that organizes History Pub is the Holy Names Heritage Center. And that is an organization that is created by the Sisters of the Holy Names. I think there's another name in there. My friend Karen at the back table can tell you the full name of the sisters, but they're the ones who have created St. Mary's School that's here in Portland, and a number of other organizations, and they've been in Oregon as long as it's been a state, since 1859. So their history is really deeply embedded with Oregon's history, and because of the Holy Names Heritage Center, there's research materials available for folks to go and learn about the history of the sisters and all of the work that they're doing now. They have a couple of major initiatives, including demanding that water be recognized as a human right that everyone should have access to, and also, I know, demanding an end to human trafficking, otherwise known as enslavement. So check out the Sisters of the Holy Names. McMenamins is, of course, one of our other partners here. McMenamins has always been a partner with History Pub and has been really fantastic here and has sprouted out, creating some other history pubs around the state. So when you're over in Bend, you can go get good history at the McMenamins there, too. We have a lot of great things going on at the Oregon Historical Society right now. Our mission there is to preserve our state's history and make it accessible to everyone in ways that advance knowledge and inspire curiosity about all of the peoples, places, and events that have shaped Oregon. We do that work in a lot of ways. Our downtown museum, our research library that's free and open to everyone, our online projects, the Oregon History Project and the Oregon Encyclopedia. We have just released this summer a massive new digital collections website where you can access amazing photographs and oral histories and other materials. There's information about that on the back table. That's always growing and gives free access to some of the things in our collections. School groups come and tour. We send traveling trunks out to classrooms across the state. And of course, we do public programs like this one. Most of our public programs are free and open to the public, so check out the upcoming events on the back table. You can also sign up to win a free membership to the Oregon Historical Society, so you'll get on our list and get the Oregon Historical Quarterly, our Journal of Oregon History, and all that good stuff. Right now, our main exhibit is called High Hopes, and it's about the presidency and the life of John F. Kennedy, so AKA JFK. So come check that out. There's a number of wonderful things there. We're really excited about tonight's program. I think folks who have been in the Pacific Northwest for any length of time, you begin pretty quickly to hear the name Obo Addy, and you begin to hear folks talk about oboe or talk about performances and ways that they've been impacted or known about Obo Addy and his legacy. And so we're really privileged and honored to have a discussion tonight of that legacy and then also a performance that demonstrates part of that legacy. So I'll introduce you to a couple of our speakers and also the group that's going to do the performance. We'll have a talk that's probably about a half an hour or so, and then we'll have some music, so it's a real treat. Susan Addy has worked with nonprofit organizations since 1973, and she has been executive director of the Obo Addy Legacy Project, which also used to be known as the Homoa African Arts and Cultures, which was organized in 1986. Susan is the producer of the Homoa Festival of African Arts, and she held that role for 15 years, beginning in 1990. In addition to overseeing the entire production, she played a key role in forming partnerships with both the Oregon Folklife Program and the Arts for New Immigrants program at URCO in order to support traditional artists who are newly arrived in Portland. She also managed her husband Obo Addy's career and played a key role in the manufacture, distribution, and promotion of his recordings, which I also do just want to pause and say we have some CDs and DVDs that are going to be available for sale after the program. You can meet Susan at the back table to take advantage of that. Alex Addy comes from Ghana, West Africa. Much of his youth was spent in Ghana, where he was involved in drumming performances at his church before moving to Portland, Oregon at age 15. He joined Homoa African Arts and Culture's Obo Addy Legacy Project in 1992. Alex comes from a long line of drummers in the Addy family and is a son of Obo Addy. He has been teaching at Right Brain Initiative, Young Audiences, Saturday Academy, Open Meadow Alternative Schools, the Higher Stages Program, and the Scun School Program throughout the city. He has worked with Okropong for the past 24 years. The musicians and dancers of Obo Addy Legacy Project are living examples of the strength of African performing arts. Using the repertoire taught by Obo Addy Legacy Project takes you on this journey through Ghana, West Africa, through its two performing ensembles, Okropong and Obo Addy drummers. And tonight we're going to be having Okropong perform. So please join me in welcoming Susan Addy.
Hi there. I'm Susan, and actually, Eliza said everything, so I think I can leave, but maybe I'll stay for a while. So what I wanted to do was make this somewhat informal and tell you about Obo and a lot about his background before he came to the United States, because that's really so important in knowing who he was, but also how he became the person that many of you knew. And I see a lot of people here who did know Obo and experienced either teaching from Lewis and Clark or our Homoa festivals or many other ways that we were out there in the community. And so I'll just talk a little bit at you. So for those who don't know, Obo was born in 1936 in Accra, in Ghana, and he was a Ga. Now what that means is, unlike people think that Africa is a country, we all know that it's a continent, right? And Ghana is one country. It has many, many ethnic groups, different ethnic groups. So the Ga people are the people who lived in Accra, they still do, which is on the coast. So they were largely fishermen and had a lot of other jobs, but they were the people who were on the coast, and they still are. And his father, I'll talk a little bit more about, because his father was a traditional healer. So that's someone Americans might call a medicine man or something like that, but he was really a traditional healer. The word that was used was a wancha, and he would perform ceremonies and become possessed. And while this was happening, there was drumming, singing, and dancing that went on. So when this spirit would come to him, he would do these ceremonies, and it could take go from evening until dawn the next day. He married 10 women. Obo was one of 56 brothers and sisters. So I could say he was a busy man, but that's a cheap shot. So what I will say, though, is back in those days, I think men were considered powerful and important when they had a lot of wives. And they weren't necessarily all at the same time, but over his lifetime, there were many women, many families, and many drummers, because all the men became drummers, all the women became dancers, and then they accompanied their father and mother. She was a dancer as well. So there was Obo. He told me, and of course, most of what I have to say is secondhand because I wasn't there then. But Obo talks about being a kind of a bad child. And he tells a story about once when he was supposed to go to bed and he didn't want to. And he fussed so much that his mother finally said he could stay and sit with her. And then an earthquake came and broke the building that he would have been sleeping in. The roof fell in, and he maybe would have been whatever, something terrible. So, I mean, Obo talked a lot about life. He talked a lot about history, but he did it through stories, and that's why we thought we would just tell some stories, and I'll tell a few just because I know that that's what so many people remember about him. He also talked about the time when he couldn't get what he wanted to eat, and everyone was eating the same meal, and he wanted something different. So he got angry with his mother, and she said, this is it. You either eat what we're eating or you don't eat at all. So he apparently climbed the roof of the house that they were living in, and he threatened to jump because he thought that he would get his way, of course, if he threatened to jump off the roof. So his mother said, go ahead. If you're gone, I still have 4 more children, and they're not as difficult as you are. So I think he sheepishly found his way back down off the roof and decided not to kill himself that day. And he went to school. He probably only went to school up to about the 5th grade and then worked and helped out after that. But the one thing he did that he always talks about as being the first time he performed was the Church of England was very big in Ghana, and he had the chance to become an altar boy. So he went to the church, even though his family wasn't part of that because they were more traditional in their beliefs. And he talks about how he learned how to be an altar boy. There were certain things that had to be put on the altar. So he would come back to the house and he would draw everything in the dirt with a stick of where these various things would go. And his father, who was the wancha, would coach him as far as where things went and what he had to do. So he always said that that was the first time he was on stage. And I don't know that that was the intent, but that was his thinking about it. So he grew up in this village, this different lifestyle. His mother and father lived in different places. He would walk with his father sometimes from the village to the city of Accra and back and forth. So it was a different, kind of lifestyle than we would have here with our nuclear families. And yet, I think it was very rich to have so many people in your environment and so many people who loved you. So he went to school, and he talked about, I'll tell you one more story, about when he was a little boy, and I think, so I'm going back just a little, and he was 6 years old, and there was a big ceremony, and you've heard this many times, and so the little children were not allowed to be there when these ceremonies went on. They were supposed to go to bed. And Obo slipped outside and he hid under a bench where all the drummers were playing. And they played, and around midnight, the master drummer became so drunk, he could no longer play. He was falling over. And a drummer was needed because this ceremony went on from evening until dawn the next day. So Obo called from under the bench that he could play the drums and that he could do it. And at first, they laughed at him and told him no way that he could not do this, that he was just a little kid. But he insisted, so they had no choice. They said, let's try him and see what happens. So they put all these pillows on a bench to make him tall enough to reach the drum. And he started to play and actually played really well and surprised everybody. So they said, go ahead then and do it. And he played from midnight until dawn the next day and played all the parts, played everything that he needed to. And that's when he began that part of his career. He says that's when he became a master drummer. Then when he was 18, and he'd been playing traditionally with the family all this time, when he was 18, he joined a band. And it was called the Joe Kelly Band. They played like dance music, ballroom music. They called it continental music. And so it was a big band. He played the bongos. And surprisingly to us, I think, it was at that time what they call a color bar. So even though it was in Ghana, none of the Ghanaians were allowed to go there. The only people who could go to hear this music were Europeans and Americans who wanted to hear the music. And the actual performers and the people in the band had to stay outside except when they were on stage. Surprising. So I wanted to show you a picture of what Obo looked like at that time. So there he is. That's Obo at 18 years old in his first band. Another little shot. So you can sort of see that that's Obo. And that's what he looked like when he first came to this area. And Obo was able to come here because he and his brothers had formed a band in Ghana, and they played so well that it was around 1972, and they were invited to play at the Olympics in Munich and represent Ghana. So they played, and they were very popular with all of the performers there. And through that, they met an agent who actually asked them to stay in London, and he would represent them, set up tours, and send them all over the world. And actually, they did that for about 4 years, where they were based in London. They came back and forth to the US as well as Australia and Europe. And when they were in America, they based at the University of Washington in Seattle. So that was how, when people say to me, how did Obo get to Portland, or how did he get to the Pacific Northwest? The answer is because it was what he knew. And the group broke up when they were in Australia. They were all brothers, and things like that can happen. So they kind of left, and some went back to Ghana, and one went to Germany, and Obo stayed in Seattle, and then kind of worked his way up and down the West Coast, and he eventually settled in Portland. Alex? Oops. I'm going to ask you to talk to them about the story about when he was at the Olympics. I forgot
Okay,
the
yes,
other one.
I
Do
can
you want
do
to
that.
talk about
Yes.
that?
Hello, everybody. Hi. My name is Alex Addy. Now, the story, my dad always tells a lot of stories. He's a big storyteller, and I love him for that because he always gives us update. A very wise man telling story. And he told us this story about being 1972, being in the Olympics. By the way, I was born in 1966, so, I may be alive. I may be there, but probably young. But he told us the story about being, being in the Olympics in 1972 in Munich, Germany. And so I guess when they were, it's 5 brothers, like Jackson 5, were musicians. Where, they were together like how Jackson 5 started, like them too. Obo Addy family was brought out the music called Panlogo. They started at Panlogo, and Panlogo won an award, won a big award. So they were invited to play for the people in the Olympics there in Germany in 1972. The artists and the actors for just after they do their games and stuff, they can be the musician that the people can dance to and play Panlogo. So, literally, Panlogo, you can play Panlogo for 2-3 hours straight, and you just change the song, and you can jam, and everybody can dance and stuff like that. But, usually my dad, he was very, very smart. When he plays, he sings at the same time. And so usually he closes his eyes, so when he sings, so you don't want to get off time and stuff. But, he said they were playing it was their time to play for the artists and all the Olympian you know, stuff, and they were playing, and he has his eyes closed, you know, and he was playing and starting, you know, singing, they were jamming, and here people were dancing, his footsteps, you know, everybody was like jumping up, everybody was dancing, and his brother just shook him like this, Obo, open your eyes, look. He said when he opened his eyes, every room there, everybody there was naked, you know. They took their clothes off and they started waving and, you know, waving and started dancing and jamming and jumping and, you know, and jumping, boom, boom, boom. And he said he thought he was in a mental home because it's the first time he's seen the light-skinned people naked. So, so he thought he was crazy, you know, but it wasn't him. People were just, in them days, people were just, you know, really into it. So they were dancing, they were jumping and stuff like that. And he said right there, it was a Japanese, you know, actress they usually use the, you know, the smoke bomb in, you know, when you watch karate movies and stuff, they use the smoke bomb. He said one of them dropped the smoke bomb, you know, for acting, and the room became smoky. So they didn't know what to do then. Everybody's coughing and still jumping and dancing and start coughing. So he said quickly they stopped. They thought they were crazy. They thought something's going on. So they stopped and grabbed the drum. They're like 5 drums. They both grabbed one each. And they said the room where they were staying is like a block away. So they just grabbed the drum and sneak and started running to the room. They said when they went to the room, everybody, they all got quiet there for 5 minutes. Nobody said something. They thought it was them. So, you know, so they didn't say nothing for a few minutes. And all of a sudden, they broke out and started laughing and stuff like that. You know, and they said, oh boy, when they get home, they got stories to tell. So, and he said, very next day, they were getting ready to go back home. And somebody, you know, it was a woman, was in one of them bridge. What's the bridge?
It was in London.
Yeah, London Bridge. It was showing on the news that the woman was naked, holding the bridge up, like, you know, want to jump. And so right there, it's like, oh, okay, maybe they wasn't crazy. It's like that. People can be naked everywhere, you know. So that was the story in 1972 when he told us. I thought it was funny. So thank you.
So I'm going to show you a little video of what Obo and his brothers looked like back in 1973, actually, when they were up at the University of Washington. So that's Obo singing in the back right side. I'm going to stop it there. So I can show you a few more things. So that gives you an idea of the group that came, to the United States, and it's hard to believe that they actually represented their country at the Olympics. That was Munich, for those who might remember. It was where there was a terrorist situation, and it was a pretty bad experience on a lot of levels, of course, too. So when the group broke up and Obo came to the West Coast, he moved around a bit, but settled in Portland around 1977 or 78. And we met around 1979. I was then the coordinator of the Artist in the Schools program, and was sending artists into schools to work with kids. And I had just written a multicultural arts program, so it was perfect because Obo just moved to Portland. And he worked in schools. He spent a lot of time working in schools, and of course that really, I think, has become a big part of his legacy, was him working in schools for little kids as well as up through college, especially at Lewis and Clark College. And he formed his first musical group in I believe it was right around 1984. He formed a band called Kukrudu that played his original music. It sounded like African jazz. And then shortly after that, he played the traditional music and brought a number of musicians and dancers from Ghana. So over the years, together we brought, I think, about 38 drummers and dancers from Ghana who now make their home in Portland. And I think it's been an important part of our lives, and it was also obviously really important for all those people who came. So I have another little video that I'd like to show for you because Obo will speak in his own words. And this is a video that was made by students at Open Meadow Alternative School. So the students did the filming, the directing, the camera work, and asked interesting questions.
I learned how to play the drum from my father. My father was a medicine man, what American would say a medicine man, but we say Wancha. Wancha means the father of the spirits. And he performed his spiritual ceremonies with drumming, dancing, and singing. My father taught me how to watch and listen by playing the drums. I learned how to compose because I hear too many sounds, and I have to put them together. When you're walking and the sound comes to your mind, sound comes to your mind, just start singing it. Don't sing any particular song. Make up your mind, and I'm gonna make up some sounds. It will become a composition. Every song I do is my favorite. If I have a song, I compose a song today, and it is my favorite. If I compose another song tomorrow, that will be my favorite. Whenever I'm drumming, I feel like this is part of me. Doing music, singing, playing the drums, I feel like this is me. This is what I want to do. I feel, and it makes me feel good. People ask me to say, in Africa, the drums heals people. Music heals people. Drums invoke spirits. So So when I'm drumming, I feel more spiritual. I feel there are things that I don't see coming into me. And that's what makes me feel like it's me. My inside, the drumming, is bringing things out. When I first came to Portland, there was no African music. My mind is, this is where I'm going to start my my business of promoting African music. Homo African Arts was established because I wanted to have non-profit organization that would govern my my promotion of African music and dance here in Northwest, in Portland, Oregon. Whenever I go to a class or teaching young people, I always start with how to hit the drum. Because some people think you can just pound on it. In Ghana, women don't play drums. But here, I teach girls. And sometimes when I'm teaching girls and boys, first thing I do is I teach them how to pound on it properly. Play, so that you won't hurt yourself or you won't, or you'll get a good sound. And that's what that's the first thing. And, you can see a lot of people doing drumming with some styles and like showmanship kind of thing. That's not in drumming. That will make you get a good sound. So what I first teach people is, how to hit it properly. So how to pound on it properly. How to hit it. We have 5 sounds and teach the first sound. How to hit that properly and get the good sound. Because there's no drumming if you don't do it properly and get a good sound. The sound is very important.
Sorry. I'm improving my technical skills tonight, or not. So I think it's always best when Obo were to say it in his own words. And during his lifetime, besides the taste of his life that you've seen tonight, he received the Governor's Award for the Arts in Oregon in 1993 and a Master Fellowship from the Regional Arts and Culture Council. And then in 1994, he was awarded the National Endowment for the Arts National Heritage Fellowship Award, which is the highest honor that a traditional artist can receive in this country. He wrote music for the Kronos Quartet and did a number of chamber music pieces, including a piece for a group called Saxoforte in Germany, Third Angle New Music Ensemble here. So he was a man of many abilities between composing, teaching, recording. He died in 2012 of liver cancer, and he had been struggling with cancer for about 10 years, and yet he performed and continued teaching throughout that whole time. So when I think about what his legacy is, I really would have to say that it's a number of things, but bringing Ghanaian music and African music to Oregon for the first time of anyone doing that, going into schools, and I know probably there are many people here who could say, yes, he came to my school or my kids or me. So we were tracking our numbers, and he either performed or taught over 1.2 million people in the United States before he passed. Yeah. And of course, his other accomplishment is training so many other musicians and dancers from Ghana and forming the groups that he did. So I'm going to stop talking so that you can have a chance to see a live performance by members of Okropong. And I did want to mention that on the back table, we do have information about our group if you're interested in anything, knowing more about us and contact information, and we have CDs and a documentary about Obo. So with that, I'll turn the program over to the live portion of our evening. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess we're gonna move on and play you a music called Mokomba. Now, like I said, we from Obo Addy Legacy Project, and our group name is called Okropong. Okropong. And you know, the reason why we're doing this is because of Obo. Now, Obo brought us here many years. You know, performed with him for years. He taught us everything we know. And, you know, most of, like my cousin here, Charles, him and I is leader in the band, in the group, in the band. And, you know, so we make sure that we keep the group alive. We continue on the legacy from Obo. You know, he wants us to do that. And Charles, you know, is a master drummer and his own really good. So, you know, with him and I, we make sure that we keep it alive. Right, Charles? So we're gonna play you called Mokomba. Now, Mokomba means somebody's coming. We're gonna play rattles, shakers. You know, it's basically like polyrhythms. Now, every one of us is gonna play different rhythms, and we're gonna put it together. We're gonna play Mokomba. Thank you. We're gonna move on and play a music called Wongo. Wongo. Wongo is from Upper East region of Ghana. You know, this music and dance is about these people do the dance to prevent the wild bird from eating their crop. So we're gonna play Wongo. Thank you. We're gonna move on and play you a music called Wamiba. Wamiba means we are coming. That means Wamiba, we are coming. It's our life. We start slow and it goes fast. Now, people on the side, if you feel free moving, you can move your hips if you like. Go for it. This song here is the jam. We're gonna play for you. It's called Wamiba.
Thank you. We're gonna move on and play you a fume fume. It's a dance. We decided we want to mix it up and put one more dance in there for you, so you see a different varieties, right? So we're gonna do a dance called fume fume. Thank you. We're gonna play. Okay. Okay. This one also is also a jam, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I'm just like Obo. Remember the video? Everything he does is a jam. So everything he does is his favorite. So this one, just like him, this one is my favorite. Okay. We're gonna play. Okay. 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 He said he want to see everybody dancing. Yeah. Okay. We're gonna play. Okay. Okay. Originally from Liberia. And yeah, there you go. You know, like just like everybody does. You know, God people from Ghana went to Liberia and brought Oge home, and they adopted it. You know, they made it theirs. But originally it's from Liberia. We're gonna start slow. It's called Jubo. We're gonna go fast. It's called Waka. Okay. Thank you very much. We'll see you another time. Thank you.